Yeah, my name is Graham Weatherspoon, retired New York City detective.
I think the best way to hold police officers accountable is to film them. As a former police officer, what recommendations would you have to film the police?
I think people should do it in this age of technology because you got to remember, if you look across the street, I'm sure you will find a surveillance camera somewhere around this hospital. And the city has put up surveillance cameras, the police department has put up over 1,000 surveillance cameras across the city, monitoring people going about their daily business, which in essence is a violation, okay? Under the guise of protecting people, people's rights are being violated. That's why stop and frisk has gotten so big, under the guise of stopping crime. They're not stopping crime, they're committing crimes. So when in this technology, if a person has an iPad or anything that they can film, they should film it, all right? Don't interfere, but film it, all right? They're filming you, you film them. Let it go viral. The cop that punched the guy on the bicycle downtown last year, whenever it was. There were a lot of incidents that never would have been exposed. Rodney King, somebody filmed that. A lot of incidents would have gone by, people would have been jacked up, dead, or whatever, and no one would have known the story if someone didn't film it. When I was a police officer, I didn't care who filmed me because I wasn't concerned with any charges being brought against me. If I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I don't need to worry about who's watching me, right? I don't need to be worried about somebody asking me for my badge number or my name. If I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, it's not a problem. And I've had people ask me, I give it to them, I write it out for them. Here you go, have a nice day. Only when you're doing something wrong is that you don't want somebody to know what you're doing, whether you're a cop or a civilian. When you're sneaking and doing something wrong, you don't want anybody watching you, okay? So the cop has to be held to a higher standard than the civilian, all right? If I take my gun out now and say that I'm mad and I'm pissed off and I shoot you, and then I say, well, you know, I was just feeling bad, I was angry, so I shot him. No, the cop has to be held to a higher standard. The cop that crosses the line should get a more severe penalty than the civilian crossing the line. Okay? Not at all. You're walking around with a gun and a badge and you're committing a crime, that's heinous. And you should be dealt with accordingly. Because you're not a police officer, you're a criminal. That's what you are. But you're using the charade of being a police officer to commit the crime. That cop that I arrested who raped that 15-year-old girl, he wasn't a cop, he was a rapist. The PBA delegate that I had sent to prison for beating up black people, he wasn't a delegate or a police officer, he was a criminal. He was getting away with what he was doing until I caught up with it. And I put an end to it, because that's my job. We are not brothers in crime. No, my job is to prosecute criminals. And in my career, only one person ever walked out of a courtroom on a case that I had in 20 years, only one. So if I arrested you, you were gone. I didn't care if you were a cop or anything else. Didn't make any difference. Cop, preacher, rabbi, I've arrested teachers, all kinds of people. You break the law, you got it. If I break the law, I should get it. And I should get it harder because I am the one representing the law. In 1949, a book was written called Jesus and the Disinherited by Dr. Howard Thurman. He was the dean of Howard University School of Theology. He said the poor move through life like Londoners in the fog, knowing that at any given moment, something can come through that fog and attack them. And invariably, it is the very system that is supposed to protect them that is violating them. 1949, he wrote that. And he said, and it's often the police and other government agencies victimizing the poor. That was 63 years ago he wrote that. And ain't nothing changed. Nothing has changed. So there is a systemic problem in the culture with the people and the whole notion of policing. So until we can eradicate the people at the top and hold the people at the bottom accountable, we're not going to have a change.
We could do that if we film. And my last question is, listening to you speak, you seem like a man who's very rich in history. In your lifetime, what's the most interesting thing that has happened to you or that you experienced that you could share with us? I know it's a kind of big question. You could take your time if you want answering it.
Man, there have been so many things. Standing with Nelson and Winnie Mandela in Yankee Stadium on the stage when they came here. Standing in this auditorium with Rosa Parks, with my children, for her 70th birthday. And they were taking pictures with her. Sitting with Barack Obama in 2007, before he became the president, while he was running, to advise him on some very critical issues relative to his very life. I've been very blessed over the years to have interacted with a lot of people. But this issue of policing is very critical to me. It's very critical. I don't take it lightly. When people use power in an abusive manner against the poor and against the innocent, it is beyond heinous, and I can't stand it. I can't tolerate it. There were men, former Green Beret, not gangbangers, former Green Beret, who said following one of the shootings here in New York, they were going to start taking out these cops. And trust me, Special Forces, they're not using a 9mm. They'll be using a 7.62 NATO round with a scope or a 30-06 sniper rifle, and they can drop you from a mile out. You won't hear the shot, you won't hear anything, you won't know anything. And in talking to these guys, I said, I used some military terminology, which I'm not going to get into. But fortunately, that has not happened. What I am trying to avoid is that happening. If the New York City Police Department is not brought into check, we will have the shootings of police officers as we did when I was a rookie cop in the 70s. New York was violent in the 70s. New York is not violent today. It was violent in the 70s. Even with the gang members, they're a joke. They're a joke. In the 70s, we buried a cop every month. I have two friends we buried back-to-back days. They were shot one day behind the other. My first partner was shot in the face. Friends of mine, I carried their caskets. And we didn't have bulletproof vests. So the men that did the job in the 70s, they're nothing like these scared kids running around New York now with the bulletproof vests. But there have been many moments that I considered great, but they don't really encompass my work. Because my work does not define me, or my work did not define me. I was who I am before I went into the police department, and I maintain myself as such. A lot of times people go in, they don't know who they are, they take on this identity, and when it's time for them to leave, they don't know how to live. Because the job has become their entire life, and I've seen inspectors and chiefs commit suicide because they didn't know who they were. And the job told them, we don't need you anymore, go home, you're done.
Thank you so much for everything. Here's my card if you want to contact me, and really appreciate your time. I know it's busy, and thank you for all you have done, and thank you for standing up for accountability.
Yeah, they arrested Chad, and when I was trying to take a picture of him, Winsky threatened me with arrest. When this is press intimidation.
Got another arrest.
Hey, what was he doing?
Of these so-called power men, they're running from the camera. They're cowering. They're like.